Welcome back, my dear listener. Tonight, I invite you to settle in, breathe deeply, and wrap yourself in the soft hush of night. We're going to drift far north, beyond the wall, to a time before memory, when the world was younger, darker, and full of secrets. Have you ever felt a chill, deep and ancient, lingering in the stillness of winter? That hush, that warning. Winter is coming. But what does it truly mean? Tonight's story will guide you through the haunting legend of the White Walkers, the long night, and the heroes both remembered and forgotten who stood against the cold. From the ancient children of the forest to the silent watchers on the wall, and the forgotten truths buried deep beneath Winterfell. It's a tale of magic and survival, of shadows and sacrifice, and one that echoes through every whispered prophecy. So close your eyes, get comfortable, and let's begin the journey together. Let's begin our first journey. Long before the Iron Throne was forged, before the dragons came roaring through the skies, and before the wall stood tall, holding back the cold, there was only wilderness, untouched, ancient, full of whispers and wonder. This was the age of heroes. Thousands of years ago, some say 10, some say 12,000, the world of Westeros was still young. It had no kings, no castles, no maps, just deep forests, silent mountains, and the sound of the wind brushing through weirwood leaves. And then came the first men. They crossed over from a distant land, using a natural land bridge called the Arm of Dorne. They brought with them bronze swords, horses, and the fire of ambition. But Westeros was not empty. There, hidden in the green shadows, lived a mysterious people, the children of the forest, small, graceful, with eyes like pools of shadow, and hair the color of autumn leaves. They lived in harmony with the land, whispering to the trees, crafting weapons from obsidian, what they called dragon glass, and carving sacred faces into the red weirwoods. They had no castles, no kings, only magic and ancient wisdom, flowing through the earth like roots beneath snow. When the first men began cutting down the weirwoods, the children fought back, not with armies, but with spells, secrets, and shadows. The war was long, centuries long, and so much blood was spilled, it said the rivers wept red. But in time, there was peace. On a quiet island in the middle of the God's Eye Lake, both sides came together. There, they made the pact. The first men would stop harming the weirwoods, and the children would allow them to live in the lands they had taken. From this fragile peace, a new world began to grow. The first men began worshiping the old gods, the silent gods of tree and earth. They built their homes near sacred groves and raised their children on stories of magic and forest spirits. And from these new traditions, heroes were born. Bran the Builder, a name spoken in awe, was said to have crafted Winterfell and later helped raise the wall itself. Other noble houses rose during this time: the Starks, the Boltons, the Manderleys, all of them tracing their bloodlines back to these ancient days. It was a time of legends, a time when giants roamed the north, when wolves were as large as horses, and men whispered to trees beneath the stars. But even the longest peace must end. Far in the frozen north, something was beginning to stir, something cold and cruel and older than the oldest name. But that, my dear, is a tale for another night. You're still here, safe and warm. I'm glad. Now let me take you deeper into the snow, into the dark, into a time when the world held its breath. Long after the pact was made, after the first men and the children of the forest found peace, the world began to quiet. Villages grew into strongholds. Families became noble houses, and stories turned into myths. But far, far to the north, in a place beyond maps and memory, something awoke. The old ones called it the Long Night. It began without warning. A cold so deep, it sank into bones and stayed there. The sun vanished behind clouds of shadow, and darkness stretched across the world. For a generation, there was no dawn. Children were born, lived, and died without ever seeing the light of day. In the north, they came, silent, pale, inhuman, the White Walkers, or, as the old tongues whispered, the others. They were tall and terrible, their skin pale as moonlight, their eyes glowing with icy blue fire. They moved without sound, gliding across snow, leaving no footprints behind. Wherever they passed, the air froze, the mists thickened, and death followed. They wielded weapons like none ever seen, blades of crystal, impossibly thin, yet sharp enough to cut steel like silk. When their swords clashed with metal, the sound was like a scream, high, cold, and unnatural. But their most terrifying power was to raise the dead. Men who fell in battle rose again with pale eyes and empty hearts, creatures of ice and silence, puppets to the White Walker's will. And it wasn't only men. They raised horses, bears, wolves. Even whispers spoke of giant ice spiders, their legs clicking through frozen forests. The living were hunted, hiding in caves, deep woods, or beneath the snow. The world had become a grave, waiting to be filled. And still, the cold crept further south. The maesters debate how it began. Was it a punishment, A curse? Or simply a force too old to understand? No one knows, but everyone remembers. As the long night stretched on, and the White Walkers claimed more and more of the world, it felt as though the stars themselves had gone out. But even in the darkest winter, there is always one spark, and in this tale, that spark was known only as the last hero. His name has been forgotten, lost in the drifting snows of time. But the stories remember what he did. He set out alone, seeking the children of the forest, hoping their ancient magic might help mankind survive. He wasn't alone at first. He had friends, a horse, a faithful dog. But the cold took them, one by one. His sword froze and broke. His companions vanished into the frost. His footsteps were followed by silence and fear. He walked through endless snow, hunted by ice spiders, large as hounds, by shadows that whispered and eyes that watched, but still he walked, until finally he found them, the children of the forest, and they listened. They remembered the pact. They remembered the shared blood spilled long ago, and once more they stood beside mankind. Together they forged weapons from dragon glass, black obsidian, sharp as truth, and with it they fought back the night. This final stand became legend, the battle for the dawn. Men and children, side by side, fighting not for land or power, but for the warmth of the sun. And slowly the tide turned. The White Walkers were pushed back, retreating to the far north, to the land beyond the frost, to the place called the Lands of Always Winter. They weren't destroyed, but they were defeated, and for the first time in a generation, the sky began to clear, and the first rays of sunlight kissed the snow. The long night was over, but the people of Westeros knew the threat was not truly gone, only sleeping. And so they built a shield, a wall of stone and ice, 700 feet high and 100 leagues long, strong enough to hold back death itself. But the wall alone was not enough. To guard it, they formed the Night's Watch, a sworn brotherhood of men who would never take wives, never own land, never leave. Their only purpose, to stand between the living and what waits in the cold. But even oaths fade and time forgets. After the battle for the dawn, the world began to heal, but the memory of the long night never truly faded. The first men and the children of the forest, they knew the White Walkers were not gone, only waiting. So together, they built something greater than any sword or spell. A barrier, a warning, a shield made of ice and magic. The wall, stretching hundreds of miles across the north and rising taller than any tower. The wall was more than just frozen stone. It was said to be woven with ancient spells, infused with the same magic that once pulsed through the earth when the world was young. It stood to separate the realm of men from whatever still lingered beyond. But a wall, no matter how tall, is meaningless without someone to guard it. And so was born the Night's Watch. Once it was a proud and noble brotherhood. Lords and princes would send their sons to serve. It was an honor to take the black cloak and stand where others could not. The men of the watch took vows, solemn and binding. They swore to give up land, title, marriage, even their names. They would live and die on the wall. Their words became a prayer to the cold. Night gathers, and now my watch begins. It shall not end until my death. I shall take no wife, hold no lands, father no children. I shall wear no crowns and win no glory. I am the sword in the darkness. I am the watcher on the walls. They built 19 castles along the wall, places of strength and silence. But as centuries passed, and the memory of the long night faded into bedtime tales, people stopped believing. Fewer men came, the noble blood disappeared, and the Night's Watch became a place for outcasts, criminals, exiles. The once great castles crumbled. Only 3 remain manned today. The rest sleep under snow and stone. But still the wall stands, and still some men watch. They do not ask for thanks. They are forgotten by choice. But in the deepest of winters, when the wind howls like wolves and the stars vanish behind black clouds, you may hear them. Whispers along the icy stones, footsteps where no man walks, and you may remember that somewhere far away, someone still keeps the vigil. When the wall was still young and the Night's Watch still noble, there came a man whose name has been forgotten. He was the 13th Lord Commander, strong, proud, a leader of men. But in the snow, he saw something that would change him forever. From atop the wall, he gazed out across the white wilderness, and there he saw her, a woman like no other, her skin pale as frost, her eyes bluer than any summer sky. She moved like smoke and smiled like silence. No one knew where she came from. Some say she was a White Walker. Others claim she was death itself. The Lord Commander went to her, alone, beneath the cold moon. And when he gave her his love, he gave her his soul. He brought her back to the wall, named her his corpse queen, and at Night Fort, the oldest and darkest castle of the Watch, he crowned himself Night's King. Under his rule, the Watch began to change. The brothers grew cruel, cold, twisted by dark magic. Stories say he sacrificed children, gave their lives to the others beyond the wall, that he worshipped strange gods, that his soul had turned to ice. For 13 years he ruled, with his pale queen beside him. But the people of the north grew afraid, and 2 kings, Brandon the Breaker, king in the north, and the king beyond the wall, joined forces to stop him. They marched on Night Fort, and what they found was so terrible, they erased his name from every record, forbidden it to be spoken, even whispered. The Night's King was no more, but old Nan, the storyteller of Winterfell, She used to lean in close, eyes wide, and tell young Bran a secret. They say he was a Stark. A land of golden palaces, shimmering silks, and ancient shadows. Long ago, they too remembered the long night. But in their stories, it was not snow that swallowed the world. It was ash and smoke, a dark sky, a dying sun, and demons walking freely among men. Their tales speak not of one savior, but of a woman with a monkey's tail, a trickster, a wanderer, who turned fate upon its head. No one knows her name. Her story is fragmented, lost in half-burned scrolls. But she is said to have stolen fire from the gods and danced through the darkness with laughter and light. Some call her a myth, others a goddess. But far beyond Yiti, in a land called Ashai, where the rivers glow black and no children laugh, another legend burns brighter than all. The legend of Azor Ahai, a man forged in fire. He knew the darkness was coming, and he sought to make a weapon, one strong enough to stop the endless night. The first time, he forged a sword and tempered it in water. It shattered. The second time, he drove it through the heart of a lion. It broke again, but on the third try, he worked for 100 days and nights, and when it was time to temper the blade, he turned to his wife. Nissa. He loved her deeply, but he knew what he must do. With her blessing, he plunged the sword into her heart. Her scream was said to echo across the world. Her soul, her love, her life poured into the steel, and the blade blazed with fire. Lightbringer, the red sword of heroes, a weapon made of sacrifice and sorrow. They say it drove back the night, that Azor Ahai became a legend, a flame in human form. But here's the mystery. Some say he was reborn, that he will return in the hour of the world's greatest need, as the prince that was promised. The Red Priestess, Melisandre, believed it was Stannis Baratheon. Then she looked to Jon Snow. Others whisper of Daenerys Targaryen, a girl born of fire, with dragons in her blood. But prophecies, sweet one, are like snowflakes, beautiful, fleeting, and never truly the same. Even George R.R. Martin, the teller of this grand tale, says that prophecies in his world are meant to deceive. So who was Azor Ahai? A man? A myth? A warning? Or perhaps he lives in every one of us, in every sacrifice, every act of love, every fight against the cold. You made it, my brave dreamer. Tonight we return home to Winterfell. Among the snow-covered trees, past frozen rivers and howling wolves, lies a castle as old as memory, Winterfell. It is not the largest fortress, nor the most ornate, but it was built to endure. Hot springs run beneath its stone floors, warming the halls even in the cruelest winters. Its towers stand like silent sentinels, watching, waiting, for winter is coming. The words of House Stark, not a boast, not a prayer, but a warning. Unlike the southern houses, who say things like, "Hear me roar," or "Ours is the fury," the Starks whisper truth. Winter always comes, and they are always ready. Their founder, Bran the Builder, lived in the Age of Heroes. He is said to have helped raise the wall and built Winterfell itself upon a hill of secrets. But the deepest secrets of the Starks lie beneath, in the crypts. Stone tunnels stretch far underground, lined with statues of dead Stark lords, each one holding an iron sword across their lap. Why swords? Some say to keep their spirits at rest. Others whisper the swords were meant to keep something sealed inside. The crypts are cold, always cold, even in the warmest summers, and strange, as though something watches from the shadows. Some believe that beneath the lowest level is an ancient truth, a secret about the White Walkers, about the long night, about what lies waiting beneath the north. You see, the Starks are not like other families. Their blood traces back to the first men, pure and old, and in their veins still flows the echo of magic. Some of their children are born with gifts, like warging, the power to enter the minds of animals, or green sight, visions of the past and of the future through the eyes of weirwood trees. Bran Stark, youngest of his line, became more than a boy. He became the three-eyed crow, and through him, the old world opened its eyes once more. Even Jon Snow, Arya, and Rickon felt the pull of that hidden magic. The North remembers, and the Starks carry that memory.